The lieutenant didn't even look up from his desk when he said it. He just kept clicking through something on his monitor like I was a noise he was waiting to stop. Look, your daughter submitted corrupted files. The platform flagged it as a technical error. There's no crime here, no perpetrator, nothing to investigate. He finally glanced at me. And even if someone did mess with the submission, you'd need proof. You don't have any. He leaned back, chair creaking. The Kettering family is well regarded in this county. I'd be real careful about making accusations. I didn't argue. I thanked him for his time, stood up and walked out. What he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, is that I spent 8 years as an Army Signal Corps intelligence analyst. 2 deployments, dozens of operations where the entire mission depended on pulling truth out of corrupted data, deleted logs, and systems designed to hide what happened. I know how to find the fingerprints people leave when they think they've wiped everything clean. My name is Darian. I'm 31 years old, living in a mid-sized town in western North Carolina, running a small private cybersecurity consulting firm out of a converted garage. I thought the hardest battles of my life were behind me. I thought wrong. My daughter Cora is 16. She's been drawing since she could hold a crayon. And I mean that in the way parents say it, but also mean it, literally. The kid could render a face with a stubby Crayola at age 4, in a way that made people stop and stare. By 14, she was doing digital illustration and mixed media work that her teachers didn't know how to grade because it was outside. The rubric last spring, she entered the Southeastern Regional Arts Scholarship Competition. First place comes with a full 4-year arts program scholarship worth over $40,000. She spent 5 months on her portfolio. 5 months of late nights, weekends, scrap drafts, and do-overs. She submitted it 2 weeks before the deadline. 3 days after the submission window closed, she got an automated rejection email. The subject line read, "Portfolio submission, disqualified, file integrity failure." She came downstairs holding her phone, and the look on her face was not the look of someone who had lost a competition. It was the look of someone who had been told something true about the world that she hadn't been ready to know yet. She said, "Dad, my files were corrupted. But I checked them before I submitted. I checked them 3 times. I told her we'd figure it out. I made her hot chocolate, sat her down, and asked to see everything. The submission confirmation email, the rejection, the platform login, all of it. While she slept, I started working. What I found in those first 2 hours was enough to make my jaw tighten, in a way I hadn't felt since overseas. The submission platform's own timestamps showed that Cora's portfolio files had been accessed and replaced 14 hours after she submitted them. Not corrupted. Replaced. Someone had logged into the submission portal, using a compromised administrative credential, and swapped out her files for corrupted placeholders. Her original files, 5 layered digital pieces, and 1 short mixed media video, were gone from the server entirely. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had a partial access log, showing the IP range the intrusion came from. It was a residential address 2 miles from the high school. I made some calls. I have a former Signal Corps colleague named Darnell, who now does independent digital forensics work. I described what I was seeing without giving him names. He said, "That's not a hack by some random kid who got lucky. That's someone with working knowledge of how submission portals handle file authentication. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." That changed everything. I went to the school first. Cora's arts teacher, Ms. Varro, had already emailed the scholarship committee on Cora's behalf, asking for a review. The response she got back from the committee director was 4 sentences long, and essentially said the disqualification stood, and that file integrity issues were the applicant's responsibility. Ms. Varro was apologetic and furious in equal measure. She pulled up Cora's submissions from class, the same pieces, backed up on the school's internal server. "These are extraordinary," she said quietly, scrolling through them. "I've been teaching for 19 years. Cora's portfolio was the best student work I've submitted to any external competition." I asked her if she knew of any other students who might have had issues with the scholarship portal in past years. She paused. Then she said, carefully, there was a girl 2 years ago, Priya Nambiar. Similar situation, her portfolio was flagged and disqualified for a technical error. She was devastated, transferred schools the following year. I wrote that name down. Priya Nambiar had a LinkedIn page. She was now a freshman at a community college 2 counties over, studying business administration, not art. I reached out through a message that was brief and honest. I told her who I was, what had happened to my daughter, and that I thought the same thing might have happened to her. She replied 4 hours later. She said she'd always suspected it wasn't a real technical error, but that her family couldn't afford a lawyer. And eventually, they just let it go. She said she still had all her submission receipts and her original portfolio files saved on an external hard drive. She had not let it go completely. She just had nowhere to take it. I now had 2 incidents, 2 years apart, same competition, same platform, same school. I started building a timeline. Darnell ran a deeper trace on the IP and the access logs I'd pulled. The compromised credential used to access the portal had been registered to an administrative account belonging to a school board member. An account that had not been used for anything else in over 8 months prior to the intrusion. That account didn't do this on its own. Someone obtained those credentials, specifically. The school board member was a man named Aldous Kettering. He was also the father of a junior named Bo Kettering, a kid known, around school, as the one most likely to be given the benefit of the doubt in any situation. For reasons that had nothing to do with his character, Bo Kettering had applied to the same scholarship program Cora had entered. He had not been disqualified. I sat with that for about 20 minutes. Then I called my daughter into the kitchen and asked her, without leading her, if there was any history between her and Bo Kettering. She looked at the table. She said that Bo had asked her to help him with a project last fall, some kind of digital illustration assignment, and she declined because she was already overwhelmed with her own portfolio work. She said he hadn't been openly hostile about it, just cold. Then she looked up and said, "Is this about him?" I told her I didn't know yet. I told her to go finish her homework. I knew. The cover went deeper than one family, though. Aldous Kettering was on the school board. Yes, but he was also a significant donor to the county's annual policing fund. The discretionary budget that paid for equipment upgrades and training retreats, and other things that kept certain people comfortable. Lieutenant Morse, the officer who had looked through me like I was a minor inconvenience, had been photographed at 2 of the Kettering family's annual charity golf tournaments. Both photos were still public on the county sheriff's department's Facebook page. So the institutional wall made sense now. It wasn't just a father protecting his son. It was a network that had decided, quietly and without much discussion, that someone like Cora, daughter of a single dad running a small business, no last name that opened doors, no family legacy in the county, simply didn't matter as much. I want to be honest about something. There was a night, maybe 3 days into all of this, where I sat in my garage at midnight and felt something cold and low move through me. Not rage, exactly. Something older than rage. I thought about how easy it would be to simply make Aldous Kettering's life extremely uncomfortable in ways that couldn't be traced back to me. I know how those things work. I spent years learning exactly how they work. I didn't do any of that. Not because I couldn't. Because it would have been wrong. And because it would have taught my daughter the wrong lesson about what power actually is. Instead, I got methodical. I documented everything into a master file. The original access logs, the timestamp proof, the IP trace, Darnell's technical analysis, Priya's original submission records and receipts, the 2 sets of photographs, the school board membership records, the charitable donation disclosures, the sheriff's Facebook page photos. I prepared 3 complete copies. Then I contacted a journalist named Carmen Whitley, who worked for the regional affiliate of a major news network. I'd done a cybersecurity consultation for her station 2 years ago, and she owed me a conversation, not a favor. Journalists don't owe favors, but a conversation. I told her I had a story about a scholarship competition, a cover-up, and a pattern that went back at least 2 years, possibly more. She asked if I had documentation. I told her I had a binder. She said she'd meet me the following Tuesday. I did not send anything to her yet. I wanted 1 more week. The reason I waited is the same reason. You don't flip your cards until everyone has committed to the pot. I needed Bo Kettering to feel safe. I needed Aldous Kettering to believe the matter was closed. I needed Lieutenant Morse to have fully stopped thinking about me. On day 9, a new development accelerated the timeline. Cora came home from school and handed me her phone without saying anything, a group chat she'd been added to. She had no idea who added her. Showed a screenshot of what appeared to be her disqualification email, with a caption from a screen name she didn't recognize. Guess not everyone's cut out for it, lol. 3 people had reacted with laughing emojis. I photographed the screen. I made Cora screenshot everything before the messages disappeared. Then I handed her phone back and said, "Go eat something. I made chili." She looked at me for a long moment and said, "Dad, are they going to get away with this?" I held her gaze and told her the truth. "No." "How do you know?" "Because I'm already handling it." She went inside. I stood on the porch for a few minutes, listening to the neighborhood. The distant sound of traffic on the main road. A dog barking somewhere. I thought about a line one of my instructors used to say during training. The biggest advantage you can have over an adversary is that they think you're not a threat. Aldous Kettering thought I was a grieving father, with no resources and no leverage. That was his only real mistake, and it was a catastrophic one. I moved on day 11. I sent the first envelope to the State Department of Public Instruction's Office of Charter and Digital Equity, the division that oversees scholarship program integrity. I sent the second to the state's Office of the Inspector General for Education. The third went to a civil rights attorney named Ms. Featherstone, who specialized in educational access discrimination cases. Darnell's technical analysis went to all 3, clearly labeled and explained in plain language. I sent nothing to the media yet. Within 72 hours, the scholarship committee had received a formal inquiry from the state. Within 5 days, the committee director, the same woman who had sent the 4-sentence dismissal, was on the phone with her legal counsel. I know this because Ms. Featherstone told me, and Ms. Featherstone knew because someone in the committee's administrative office was uncomfortable with what had been allowed to happen, and was by that point very willing to talk. The first public crack came from an unexpected direction. Priya Nambiar's mother, who I had spoken to twice by phone, and who had every reason in the world to be exhausted and cynical about all of this, gave a recorded statement to the state investigator. She talked about her daughter coming home from the scholarship notification, about how Priya had quietly packed away her sketchbooks and not touched them for almost a year afterward. She talked about what it costs a family when a door gets closed that should have been open. It was 14 minutes long, and it was devastating. A copy of that statement ended up with Carmen Whitley. I didn't send it. Someone else did. Carmen called me on a Thursday evening and said she was going to run the story with or without my participation, but that she'd rather have it be accurate. We talked for 2 hours. I walked her through the technical documentation. She brought in her station's own cyber analyst to verify Darnell's findings independently. They agreed on every significant point. The story ran on a Sunday. It led with Cora's name. I had approved that, after asking Cora directly and letting her make the decision herself. It ran Priya's name too, with her permission. It showed the access log timestamps in a visual graphic that anyone could understand. It named Aldous Kettering as the holder of the compromised credential. It named Lieutenant Morse by title, in the context of the dismissed complaint. It did not speculate about motive beyond what the evidence supported, which Carmen told me was the correct way to do this. And she was right. By Sunday evening, the story had been shared 43,000 times and was trending in 3 state-level news aggregators. By Monday morning, it had been picked up by 2 national outlets. By Monday afternoon, Aldous Kettering had retained a crisis PR firm. which is what people do when they know they're out of options, but haven't admitted it yet. Bo Kettering was quietly removed from the active scholarship submission pool, a decision the committee announced in bureaucratic language about reviewing all participants in light of ongoing inquiries. I assume someone in his family's legal team made that call. On Wednesday, the school board held an emergency closed session. On Thursday, Aldous Kettering submitted his resignation from the board, citing the need to focus on his family during a difficult time. That language, difficult time, was doing a lot of work. The scholarship committee announced a full review of the past 5 years of disqualifications. I expect they will find what they will find. Lieutenant Morse has been referred to the county's Internal Affairs Office for review of his handling of my initial complaint. I did not ask for that. It happened because once a story like this has momentum, people inside the system who have been quietly uncomfortable for a long time start to find their footing. The civil lawsuit Ms. Featherstone filed on Cora's behalf is not primarily seeking money. It is seeking a permanent third-party audit mechanism for the scholarship program, a binding remediation process for past disqualified applicants, including Priya Nambiar, and a formal written apology from the scholarship committee to both students. We'll see what they decide is cheaper. 3 weeks after the story ran, I was sitting at the kitchen table early on a Saturday, working through emails with coffee, when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Cora came into the kitchen in her pain-stained hoodie, the one with the left sleeve frayed at the cuff that she refuses to let me replace. She poured herself a glass of water, stood at the counter for a moment, and then said, without looking at me, "I started working on something new last night." I looked up. "Yeah? It's different from the portfolio pieces. Bigger. I want to show. I don't know. All the space that gets taken up by things that shouldn't have been allowed to happen." She paused. "I want to submit it to something national. Not the regional program, something bigger." "You should," I said. She finally looked at me. "You never told me exactly what you did, how you did it." "I know. Why not?" I thought about how to answer that honestly. Because I didn't want you thinking the only way to fight back is to know what I know. What I did was specific to me. My training, my background, the tools I had access to. What matters is that you didn't have to do it the way I did it. You just had to be patient long enough for it to work. I set my coffee down. "That part you can do without me." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "There was another girl, from 2 years ago, Priya." She gave her statement for the investigation. "I know. Did you find her? Or did she find you?" "I found her." Cora nodded slowly, processing something. "So she was sitting there for 2 years, thinking no one was ever going to do anything." "Yes." She looked out the window at the backyard, at the oak tree dropping leaves in the early morning light. "Then the new piece isn't really just for me," she said, half to herself. "It's for her too. And whoever the next one would have been." She went back upstairs. I heard her desk chair roll across her bedroom floor, the soft click of her drawing tablet powering on. I stayed at the table a little longer with my coffee, thinking about something my old unit commander used to say, a man named Chief Warrant Officer Dunn, who had more operational experience than anyone I've ever met. The most permanent damage you can do to a corrupt structure is simply make it visible. Sunlight doesn't negotiate. I didn't destroy the Kettering family. I didn't want to. I didn't lay a hand on anyone, didn't threaten anyone, didn't do anything that couldn't be documented and defended. I just made visible what had been carefully kept in the dark, and I let the people whose job it was to respond do their jobs, without the institutional pressure that had been muffling them. The scholarship committee's review is ongoing. Miss Featherstone tells me we are in a good position. Priya Nambiar is transferring to a 4-year university program in the spring, supported partly by the settlement we expect to reach. She told me on the phone last week that she's been drawing again. Small things, getting back to it. Cora's new piece is large format. She won't let me see it until it's done. She says it might take a while. I told her to take however long she needs. I'm not in a hurry. We won the thing that mattered. Everything else is just paperwork.